Hi everybody, and thank you for joining me again on another episode of Gaffer and Gear. In today's episode, I'm coming to you from Jungle Power. They're a Melbourne-based company who make battery power stations. So in today's episode, we're going to take a look at their 3.6 kVA unit, which has 5 kilowatt hours of storage. We'll also take a sneak peek at their 45 kVA unit, which has 80 kilowatts of battery storage. Now, the main difference between these and other battery systems that you might be used to seeing is these have industrial build quality. They have an IP65 rating. They also have a massive overload capability. They can even handle 18 kilowatts for 50 seconds. The other big advantage of these is they run completely silent. The unit I'm sitting on is currently running a 1200B and a 2400B simultaneously, and it is not making a sound. Now, even though I'm a guest in someone else's place, I'm still going to go through the negatives that I see. All right, so the first negative for me is the weight. So these come in at 105 kilograms. We will go over why they're so heavy later on in the episode when we go through the positives. The next negative that jumped out for me is the wheels. They are a bit thin, but these are prototype units, so they will be addressing that issue. The next negative for me is there's no AC limit that you can program in when you're charging them. So for me personally, if I go home to my workshop, that's not an issue. But if I'm in a hotel room, for example, I would have liked the ability to dial down the power draw on these so I could charge other things simultaneously. All right, so before we go any further, let's introduce Mark from Jungle Power. So you might recognize Mark from some industry events and trade shows. He's got a bit of history in this industry. So what's your history in the industry, Mark? Where have you come from?
Well, just recently I've come from Cream Source. I was actually the Chief Marketing Officer at Cream Source since 2018. Finished up there about a year and a half ago, and it was the perfect time for me to start a new venture.
Start something new.
Yeah.
What made you want to start Jungle Power and make battery systems?
Well, I think a lot of my personal time on set, also working a little bit in electrics, and the stuff that I learnt really from my Cream Source journey was that there are a lot of gaps sort of in the market for power. And we kind of just wanted to build things that we would want to use, really. So yeah, that was really how we got around to manufacturing these.
Cool. Let's take a look at the units and see why they're so impressive. So clearly this thing is industrial build quality. So why was that important for you, Mark, when you made that decision to spend the money on that?
Well, we thought, firstly, the type of users that would be using this will generally be transporting them in trucks and moving them around. And often it will be assistants that are kind of using this equipment. And we all know how it goes. Things get banged around and smashed around. And also, we really wanted this to be ideal for the rental market. So in the rental market, things really need to be durable and withstand the rigors of rental. Sure. Yep.
And it looks weather resistant. What's its IP rating?
Yep. So it's IP65.
Wow.
So yeah, we've done that again. Bit of influence there from the Cream Source days, I think. And also, look, we've been in a lot of instances where we've been shooting our own projects where it would have been handy to have the power sort of close by and be able to withstand the weather.
And all of the components inside, they're all sealed off. So if we get something corrosive like beach sand in there, that's not going to be an issue for this unit?
Completely sealed. The unit is completely sealed off. So yeah, dust, sand, not an issue.
Right.
Yep.
And one of the main reasons this unit is quite heavy compared to other battery units is you're using heat sinks. Why did you decide to go with heat sinks and have a passive cooling system over cooling fans?
Well, there's two reasons. The main thing is really for optimal thermal performance for the batteries and the longevity of the battery health. The second thing is for noise. We wanted to make sure we could run the units with no noise at all.
Right.
So, yep.
So just in relation to that, if I go to put this on charge, my other battery systems, which rely on cooling systems, such as fans, sometimes I have to wait a long time before they will charge rapidly or begin to charge it at a decent pace. Is that the case with this, or can it charge pretty much
instantly?
It can go instantly to full charge mode.
Instantly. Yep. And I think a lot of that has to do with the size of the capacitors in here and the inverters. It's a pretty high quality inverter in here. So
right.
Yeah, all of that
So
go instant.
terms of the other reason this thing's so big is it's got those big capacitors you're talking about. What's the overload protection on this, or how much overload can this thing take?
So you can do up to 18K for
18 kilowatt.
18 kilowatts for
Wow.
up to 50 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can, yeah. And again, the thought process there were for things in production services like unit, often running coffee machines.
Yeah.
And for other industries like construction, saws, drills, compressors,
Right.
need that initial peak
Sure.
spike of power to be able to.
The one thing I found as a working gaffer on set is the one thing I can't control is people plugging in without telling me. So I can see that coming in handy from the point of view of I'm running it to its max rated output, and then someone comes along, plugs in a hairdryer or an iron or something like that without telling me.
Yep.
I know the set's not going to shut down because of that overload capability.
Yes. So you do get a warning on the LCD screen once it's overloaded, and it tells you how long you can actually run the system for at that status.
At that
Yeah.
status, yeah, awesome. And in terms of overloading this or overpowering it, I can do that with my cheaper units that cost dramatically less than that. But when I do that, the voltage drops and the frequency goes all over the place. So when we're overloading this, is it still outputting clean power that won't damage my electronics?
100%. Yep. So it's maintaining its state, but it will warn you that it's only doing that for X amount of time, but it will not interrupt the current state.
Sure. So if someone overloads this again, it's not going to damage any of my expensive lights.
Absolutely not. No.
Now I've got Max with me today. He's wandering around a little bit, so I just thought I'd introduce him properly. Fletcher unfortunately passed away about a month or so ago, but I've still got Max with me. He's 17 years old and still going. In the negatives, I mentioned the wheels. So what are the plans for the wheels? And if I don't want these wheels, do I have to live with these wheels?
So the idea when we developed the platform was to create options, for I think a lot of people in our industry like to modify things. So these wheels are just temporary. We haven't yet decided on our actual production wheel, so we're working on that. But what we have done is we've created a quick release system, and I'll show you here. These actually just pop out. So all four of these wheels just pop out. And this receiver here, it's kind of in between a junior pin and a baby pin type of thing. And so you can actually use that to basically, you could put something like a flatbed on the back of a truck or a pickup truck, and you could drop the whole unit straight on it. Or you could build a cage or an open frame or some kind of cart for it.
The information for this spigot, that's available so people can 3D print that and make their own stuff?
Yeah, we're going to make that available on our website.
Sure.
So, we'll put a 3D up of the whole system so people can actually build their own frames around the system.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And while it's on its side, just something to point out one of the big advantages of battery systems over, say, petrol generators is there's no fluid. So these things can operate on any operating angle whatsoever.
Okay, Andrew, I've noticed that you've got a bunch of battery systems in your van. What made you become a convert to batteries?
Well, initially, I think like a lot of other gaffers, I had the wrong perception about bigger batteries. Like I'd use batteries religiously when they were smaller. V-mount batteries on the back of 1x1 panels, things like that.
Yeah.
But when it came to the bigger units, I sort of had this logic that this is meant to be a generator replacement, not a separate tool. It took me a while to get the difference that they're two completely different tools.
Yeah.
If I need to generate power for 8 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, that's going to be a petrol generator. Mm-hmm. If I just need power for one segment, 45 minutes outside or an hour here, different parts of the day, I don't need the petrol generator. Mm-hmm. So the reason I came to that realization was because another company sent me one of those battery systems for gear review, and I thought, well, I'll just keep it in the van just in case. Yep. It didn't cost me anything to have. I might as well keep it in the van. I was really surprised how often I use it, how much time it saved. So the big difference for me in terms of if I need to run remote power is a generator makes noise, a petrol generator. Mm-hmm. And that's an easy solution to get around. You just run lots of power cable and get the generator as far away as you can. So my 7 kVA generator, I found that I can run 80 metres of cable off that and get that far enough away that the sound department can't hear it. But in order to do that, I need some solid gauge cable so I don't get voltage drop.
Yep.
So that gauge cable takes a long time to pack up. So if I've got 2 or 3 locations in a day and we're only meant to be spending an hour at each place, I've got to explain to the producer that it doesn't take me long to run the cable. That's quick. But winding up 80 metres of power cable, that takes a long time. So that was that problem there was where we just needed a generator for a little while, and we just had to get the generator far enough away it didn't upset the sound department. Now we're running a 24 and we're running a 12 off this unit here in between us, and there's no noise. So the noise issue's not there. I can just get these things, roll them into where we need them, shoot our shot, and then go back out to whatever we're doing. But the other misperception I had was I thought battery systems would be a pain because I'm going to have to charge this when I get home. But what I've been finding is we might be shooting in a house or in an office or something like that. We go outside to shoot a segment. We want to power some lights. We take the battery system with us, run those lights off that battery system. And then when we go back to the environment where we've got access to AC power, I put the battery back on charge. So 80% of the jobs I work on where I'm running the batteries, they are usually fully charged before I drive home.
Yep.
But also I've got the capability of we can run a battery system like this in the morning doing an outside segment. We shoot something inside or something else. Then this is charged up, ready to use in the afternoon. So that perception I had of I'm not going to be able to charge this up during the day, that was just turned out to be a myth.
Yeah, and I mean, these are, like you said, it's not a replacement for a generator.
No, not at all.
There's just a different way to think about it and a different workflow. Once you get that down, it just changes the way you work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing I found too is if I'm working outside and our intent is to run a petrol generator, there's no way around it. We need that tool.
Yep.
The battery systems save a lot of time in setup because quite often for the work I do, we don't really have enough time to do location recce's and things like that. So we'll be setting it up and then the director will go, you know what, I think it would look better shooting over that way.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, that's where the generator is. Or I'm going to have to rerun my power cables. But in that scenario now, I can be setting up, positioning the lights around with the battery system with the light. And then we can be 2 or 3 setups in filming wise or 2 or 3 takes in while I'm still running the AC power from the generator, which has to be a long distance away for sound.
Yeah.
So it saves time on those setups.
I think it also, same is true for pack down. For instances like, for example, Video Village is still running. They need to wrangle data. You can pack down the main generator.
Pack down the generator, pack down those cables.
Main electrics department can pack up while you can have Video Village running on this, and they can keep going for a few hours after the rest of the crew.
The thing too with the generators, you've got to get them a long distance away with your power leads because you've got fumes. All right, you've got the exhaust fumes. You don't want to have something like this in a building here with the exhaust fumes coming out. And even if you're not recording sound, you don't want that noise on set. You can't hear what the director's saying.
Yeah.
So these have been a blessing for me, battery systems. So I started out with the one. So that was about 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. I had the one that came from a manufacturer for a gear review. I've now got 4. That's how often I use them. I really am surprised.
All right, Andrew, now that you're a battery convert, I don't know if you've heard of the term range anxiety for people that drive EVs. Similar thing with these. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, my initial concern with battery systems is a petrol generator. If it runs out of petrol, you just pull out your jerry can, you can fill it up. So I had that anxiety as well that I was going to run out of power before we get to the end of the shoot. But LED has a unique advantage over our old school lights like HMIs, and that is we can turn them on and off instantly. And the advantage we've got with a battery system over a generator, nothing's spooling up. So if between takes we're turning it on and off, we're going to extend that runtime. So if you think about a corporate video TV commercial, we're shooting for an hour. We're not shooting 1 hour constantly. We're maybe shooting 20 minutes during that 1 hour. So if you're turning your lights on and off, so battery systems, LED lights, CRMX, great combination for extending that runtime. You will find that you're going to get way more runtime than you anticipated you would get. All right, Mark, so run us through what we've got on the front here. It all looks very industrial.
Okay, so we've designed this to meet Australian standards. So first thing you'll notice here is this red button. That's our emergency stop. That's mandatory in Australia and not so much for other regions, but we built this specifically for Australian standards.
Right. So if we're running this in a factory, for example, a lot of business compliancy or a lot of safety compliancy would require that in their factories.
That's right.
Yeah, not so much film and TV, but yeah.
Exactly. This section here, we have our breakers. So we have our DC input breaker, which is our solar input here. Our AC outputs, you have a separate breaker, and for your input. Here we have our battery isolator. This is actually, again, just another safety precaution that we've taken. And at the bottom section here, we have our inputs and outputs. And what I will mention is that we have 3 versions of this. We actually have a C-form version, which is a C-form, 16 amp C-form input and C-form outputs.
Yeah.
And then we also have a version for the US, which is NEMA connectors.
Sure. Yep. So this breaker here, so if I'm storing this for a long period of time, I flick that breaker, I know that the batteries are completely isolated from the rest of the electronics in this. Is that
Correct.
the idea? Yeah,
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have our 4.3-inch LCD screen. We can go over some of the details and some of the information that displays there. But yes, this system is designed to run at 3.6K.
So we've got a 2400 here and a 1200 here. So let's fire those up to full power. So that's 3.6 kilowatts running there. And you can see it's not struggling with it at all. Now, one of the interesting things with these battery systems is an advantage they have over generators is no spooling up and spooling down, not just in terms of turning things on and off, but if you're running effects, for example. So just a warning for anyone that's photoepileptic, we're about to go into paparazzi mode. So you can do things like this, and normally that would kill a small generator, would create some massive problems. We'll talk about that in a second. So this thing's rated at 3.6 kilowatt constant out, all right? Yep. So we've got a 2400 and a 1200, so we're at a 3.6. What happens if we overload it? How much overload can it take?
We can go up to 18K.
18 kilowatts.
18 kilowatts for about 50 seconds, just under a minute.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
So if we want to put an additional 1200 on, we shouldn't have any problems at all.
Fire it up.
Fire it up, okay, let's have a look. All right, so how long can we run it with this much overload, 1,200 watt overload?
So our system will tell us. It's got overload time there now. So it started at 600 seconds and it's counting down.
600 seconds, that's 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yep.
All right, so just bearing in mind that we can, between takes, still turn that off.
Yes.
So we could run 10 minutes constantly with 1.2K overload, no problem at all. And that's still clean power, because I've got some very expensive lights plugged into here. I'm really trusting you here. That's clean power. It's not going to damage my electronics.
Yep, absolutely. If anything, the system will shut down first.
System will shut down before anything like that. Okay. So let's have a look. 1.2K overloaded. Do I still have my capability to on off? No problem at all. Okay, let's go crazy. What if we're running, say, a paparazzi effect? 1.2K overload. It's handling it no problem at all. That's very impressive.
There are many different use cases for this battery system, but one of the important ones is actually running it like a UPS.
So UPS is uninterruptible power source or uninterruptible power supply. So for example here, we've got our lights running off AC power through this. So we've got our AC power coming in, and that's feeding to the lights through this unit. So let's say we're doing a live broadcast, for example. We don't need the battery system. Maybe we've got access to AC power, but we want to have that backup capability in case the power gets turned off or somebody accidentally disconnects our power. Now, in that scenario there, you won't even see on playback, frame by frame, any transition point between the AC and the battery. Now, just to give you a comparison, I have another battery unit here that I'm currently using like a UPS. So we have AC power coming in, that's powering the light in the back of shot. Now, just to note, this battery system can output 2.4 kilowatt, and our light that's in the back of shot is only 1.2 kilowatts, half the amount. Right, so let's have a look at what happens when we pull the cable. So we've got that delay on that switchover because this unit doesn't have the massive capacitors that the other unit has. So I'm not criticising this unit, it's a different tool. I really love these and I've got 4 of them. But if you want that UPS capability and you want it at maximum output, maximum rated output, you definitely need to spend more money on a more expensive tool. Now, one of the reasons the J5 was so heavy, remember that 105 kilograms, is because it has a gigantic heatsink in it to dissipate the heat. Whereas a smaller unit like this, which is very lightweight, is dependent on its cooling fans. And you can definitely hear the difference. So this is running at its rated maximum output, And even when we were overloading the J5, you couldn't hear it with me and Mark standing right next to it. Now, another thing to note with the J5 is because of its cooling system, you can put it on charge straight away, even if you've been overloading it or running it at its maximum rated output. It'll go to that high-speed charge instantly, whereas a unit like this has to cool down first. Now, if you wanted to extend your runtime with the J5s, you could simply daisy chain them together using your AC power cables without any danger of overloading anything because of the latitude you have on the inverters. So this thing can also have solar power input. You guys have come up with a unique idea for solar power input. Just run us through that.
Yes, so we've actually developed a solar-powered KD. This here, we call it the JKD. In the US, they often call these things easy ups. And over here, we're obviously the backwards. We always do things the other way around. So we call it a knockdown. So KD is short for knockdown. We've called this the JKD. And we've actually built this thing with 2 eaves on it that actually have flexible solar on it. We tried to figure out how to get the solar on the actual unit itself, but it was just a little bit difficult in terms of getting it on there.
Sure.
So we've got 2 eaves that are 300 watts each side, and that plugs straight into this system, giving it a constant solar feed.
What I like about this being separate is you can remove these. You don't have to have the easy up. So you can just have the panels if you want without the easy up.
Exactly.
You've got best of both worlds.
Exactly right. And again, this was kind of really designed for things like production services. Anywhere where you'd normally put a KD, you can also have this under there. Always getting a constant drip feed of energy.
Beautiful. So here you're building a 45 kVA unit for a client. Run us through what they're getting.
Okay, so this system is a 45 kVA, 80 kilowatt hour system. So it's a 3-phase system. Similar to our smaller system, we've kind of built this specifically for film and TV. We've got all the cool things in here, like you can basically remote manage the system. You can remote manage that through a 3G, 4G network. With that, you can actually dial in and check the system status. You can control it for fleet management. So you can do things like set a geofence, like maybe you don't want this to go outside of a certain range. You can program it so that when that happens, you get notified.
You get an alarm.
You get an alarm, and you can shut the system down at that point. So it's really a fleet management thing.
Wow.
But yes, 45 kVA, 80 kilowatt hour system. It's dual air conditioned. And the reason why that is, it's kind of, again, very specifically for Australian conditions. As you know, here, very hot and also very cold. The batteries themselves perform optimal when the temperature is managed. So we use the dual aircon for that.
Right, so you manage the temperature inside the unit to extend the life of the batteries.
Yeah.
And that more than compensates for running the air conditioner.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So that is the only thing I think that produces a little bit of sound on the system. Otherwise, it's dead silent. Even when the AC is on, it's just a very, very low hum. It's a DC powered air conditioning system, so it's 48 volts and it runs straight off the batteries. So again, all of these things help to optimize the overall efficiency of the unit.
So the client that's picking this up, are they using that to run lighting, or are they using that to run unit? What are their hopes?
I'm not entirely sure how they're going to use it on set, but it is for a film production. I believe it's more than likely going to be for a base camp kind of scenario, running all of the trucks and production services stuff. For lighting, this is a great tool. It's obviously it's not going to be big enough for
the big guys.
But as you can see, it's designed actually to be trailer mounted, so you can have this on a trailer, driving around, and for certain applications in lighting, it'll definitely do the trick.
And I'm guessing for your unit, your location people, you've got hair dryers turning on. In the morning, you've got all the coffee machines turning on, so we don't have any overload issues with this just being a 45 kVA. This can go beyond that for those little moments of peak time where we've got 3 kettles going and a pop-up toaster and all that.
Absolutely. Yep, it can deal with all of that. And again, this does run as a hybrid system.
Right.
So, this is not a replacement for diesel generators, but it can actually work with it quite well to reduce fuel consumption.
So it's like having a hybrid car.
Pretty much.
You're using less fuel at the end of the day, and that's where the
absolutely.
saving is on the fuel.
Yeah, and it's a huge reduction actually in fuel. And to add to that, you can also use this to assist with the load. So like we kind of showed earlier, using it as a pass through. If we do, overload it, this can actually kick in to assist a diesel load or vice versa.
Right. Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me here.
No worries.
And it was a pleasure to come down and see the new tech. Wish you all the best of luck. And thanks for watching Gaffer and Gear. And after the outro, there might be some outtakes. Now, I wasn't paid any money for this episode. I just wanted to help out a local company. If you're interested in distributing this product, get in touch with Jungle Power. So I've got power coming in. That's the wrong cable. We have a 1000. I got that wrong. I'm pretty sure. If you want to use a light as a UPS on a live broadcast, not a light, this is a power station. And the jungle juice, the J5. Well, funny enough, you should say that. Wrong button, it up.